You find yourself in a sun-dappled chamber of a medieval castle, where delicate silk curtains flutter in a gentle breeze and the air is scented faintly with blooming herbs. A princess, radiant in her flowing gown embroidered with gold thread, sits by a window, her jeweled tiara catching the light like a constellation of stars. This is the image that stories have long preserved, a vision of grace and beauty, an embodiment of refinement and noble poise. Courtiers murmur softly as they pass, enchanted by her every movement, while the castle itself seems to hum with an aura of elegance and grandeur. Yet, as you gaze closer beyond the shimmering surface of this fairy tale, a subtle dissonance begins to creep into your perception. The delicate lace edging her sleeves is stiff and rough from infrequent washing, the silken folds of her gown, though dazzling, conceal layers of dust and grime. The air, while sweetened by herbs, carries an undercurrent of something less refined, a faint, persistent odor that no perfumed sachet can quite mask. This is not the pristine world you imagined, but a realm where the realities of medieval life intrude upon the delicate tapestry of courtly splendor. The enchanting princess you see is not merely a paragon of beauty, she is a figure enmeshed in customs and practices that would bewilder and perhaps repulse a modern observer. Behind the gleaming tiara and the carefully arranged curls lies a secret world of hygiene practices that defy contemporary expectations. The very notion of cleanliness, as understood today, bends and twists within the walls of this castle, shaped by superstition, scarcity, and the peculiar logic of the age. In this illuminated chamber, the princess's attendants prepare her for the day ahead, brushing the heavy braids that frame her face. But the brush strokes are measured, careful not to disturb the intricate layers that conceal more than just strands of hair. They hide the reality of infrequent washing, the buildup of oils and sweat accepted as part of noble life. The princess's skin, pale and flawless in appearance, owes much to powders and paints rather than to the refreshing touch of water. Bathing, a practice you might assume routine for one of her station, is instead a rare and fraught event, approached with a mixture of dread and ceremony. This contradiction, the dazzling exterior and the hidden truth, forms the core of the princess's existence. She is both idolized and imprisoned by the expectations of her rank, where outward beauty must be maintained above all else, even at the cost of comfort and health. The castle's stone walls echo with whispered advice from physicians and courtiers alike, warning that water softens the body and invites sickness. To bathe too often is to risk losing the vitality that distinguishes nobility from common folk. Thus, the princess's daily rituals revolve not around cleansing but around concealment, the application of fragrant powders, the layering of fine fabrics, the strategic use of perfumed gloves and fans. As you watch, the princess lifts a delicate hand to her face, dabbing at her skin with a scented cloth. The fragrance is a complex blend of rose, lavender, and something earthier, patchouli or perhaps musk, designed to mask the natural odors that seep from her body after days without washing. These scents become an invisible armor, a shield against the judgment of others and the princess's own awareness of her physical state. Yet, beneath this fragrant veil lies a reality shaped by medieval understanding and the limitations of her environment. The castle's water supply is limited, drawn from wells or distant streams, often cold and uninviting. Hot water, a luxury in any household of the period, is scarce and difficult to procure in the quantities needed for frequent bathing. This scarcity transforms hygiene from a simple matter of routine into a complex negotiation of resources and beliefs. The princess's attendants must haul heavy buckets of water, heated by servants at the castle's hearth, an arduous process that ensures the ritual of bathing remains infrequent and highly ceremonial. This infrequency is compounded by the prevailing medical theories of the time, which hold that the human body is balanced by the four humors: blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile. Water, especially when warm, is believed to open the pores and disrupt this delicate equilibrium, allowing harmful spirits and diseases to enter. To bathe too often is to invite illness, a concept that chills the heart of even the most health-conscious noblewoman. Instead, the princess relies on dry cleaning methods, brushing, powdering, and the occasional rubbing of the skin with cloths soaked in vinegar or alcohol-based concoctions. The castle's corridors are alive with the scent of these remedies, mingling with the natural odors of the building's stone and timber. Despite the efforts to maintain an atmosphere of refinement, the air carries a faint trace of sweat and unwashed skin, a reminder that beneath the layers of silk and scent, the princess is subject to the same corporeal realities as any other human being. This juxtaposition of elegance and corporeality is the hidden truth behind the fairy tale image of medieval royalty. Outside the chamber, the castle's bustling life continues, a world where hygiene is shaped not only by personal preference but by social hierarchy and cultural belief. Nobles pride themselves on their distinct, natural scent, which is paradoxically both a mark of status and a source of discomfort to those around them. Common folk, who bathe more regularly out of necessity and custom, regard the aristocracy's odors with a mixture of disdain and bewilderment. This division of cleanliness becomes another thread in the fabric of medieval society, reinforcing boundaries and identities. The princess's attendants, trained from childhood in the arts of courtly presentation, understand these unspoken rules intimately. They labor not only to dress and adorn their mistress but to manage the delicate balance between appearance and reality. The powdered face, the perfumed gloves, the stiff collars, all serve as barriers against the encroaching chaos of the body's natural functions. In this way, the princess becomes a living emblem of the era's complex relationship with hygiene, admired and envied, yet burdened by the very practices that sustain her image. As you linger in this chamber, the sun casting long shadows across the stone floor, the illusion of fairy tale perfection begins to waver. The princess, poised and regal, is revealed to be a figure caught between worlds, the idealized vision of nobility and the harsh truths of medieval life. Her beauty, carefully constructed and fiercely guarded, is both a triumph and a trial, a testament to the enduring human desire to transcend the limitations of the body. In this moment of quiet revelation, you glimpse the fragile humanity beneath the jeweled tiara and embroidered gown. The princess's world, so often romanticized, is revealed in its full complexity, a realm where grace and grime coexist, where elegance masks discomfort, and where the myths of cleanliness give way to the surprising and often unsettling realities of medieval hygiene. The story of the princess begins not with a simple tale of beauty, but with a deeper understanding of the paradoxes that shaped her life and the world she inhabited. The heavy wooden doors creak open to reveal a dimly lit bathing chamber, its stone walls slick with moisture and lined with iron basins and wooden tubs. Here, the promise of cleansing water seems almost mythic, a rare and precious commodity reserved for ritual rather than routine. The princess, once resplendent in her silks and jewels, now confronts a reality that undermines every expectation of royal hygiene. In this shadowed space, the truth of medieval bathing customs emerges with unsettling clarity. Within the castle walls, bathing was less a daily habit and more an event punctuated by caution and superstition. The princess's bathing ritual, far from the refreshing routine we might imagine, was an infrequent ordeal, approached with both reverence and reluctance. Medical wisdom of the century cautioned that immersion in water could weaken the body's defenses, leaving one vulnerable to the many illnesses that prowled unseen. Thus, the princess's attendants timed her baths with care, often no more than a handful of times a year, sometimes fewer. The water itself, drawn from wells or rain catchments, was a cold and uninviting substance, often far from the comforting warmth modern baths provide. Heating it was a laborious process, requiring servants to stoke fires for hours just to fill a wooden tub. When the princess finally lowered herself into the bath, the experience was less about cleanliness and more about ritualized endurance. The water, even when heated, was believed to open the pores too widely, allowing evil humors or maladies to seep into the body. The princess's skin, delicate and pale, was at once preserved and imperiled by these contradictory beliefs. Outside the tub, the air was thick with the scent of herbs and vinegar, substances believed to purify and protect. The attendants sprinkled rosewater and lavender, hoping to mask the odors that had accumulated over weeks or months without bathing. The princess's body, cloaked for so long in layers of sumptuous fabric, bore the marks of this neglect, sweat mingled with dust, skin slick with natural oils that no soap had ever disturbed. It was an existence far removed from the clean, fragrant image expected of her. This avoidance of water birthed a culture of masking rather than cleansing. Perfumes, powders, and elaborate clothing became the princess's defense against the reality of her own body. Her skin was dusted with finely milled powders, often tinted with lead and other toxic substances to achieve an ethereal pallor. These powders absorbed oils and sweat but did nothing to remove the underlying grime. The scent of musk, rose, and amber clung to her, a fragrant veil designed to conceal the natural odors that were considered unbecoming of her rank. The layers of clothing served a dual purpose. Heavy brocades and silks trapped odors close to the skin, but they also provided a barrier against the elements and the prying eyes of courtiers. The princess's gowns were changed infrequently. Laundering was a slow, cumbersome process that demanded time, resources, and manpower. Instead, garments were aired out, brushed vigorously, or sprinkled with scented herbs, a practice that did little to address the root of the problem. Underneath the finery, the princess's body remained enshrouded in its own history of sweat and dust, a secret concealed beneath the surface. The stench of unwashed skin was not viewed with the revulsion one might expect today. Instead, the natural odors of the body were woven into the complex social fabric of the court. To smell faintly of one's station was a mark of authenticity and nobility. The common folk, who bathed more regularly due to their laborious lives and the practicality of cleanliness, were regarded as crude and unrefined precisely because their smell lacked this noble signature. Thus, the princess's scent, a blend of sweat, perfume, and powder, became a symbol of her elevated status. Despite these rituals, the reality was often less dignified. Courtiers and attendants held their breaths in close proximity, suppressing the urge to recoil from the odors that clung stubbornly to the princess's skin and clothing. The careful choreography of social interaction included subtle gestures, a delicate fan fluttered before the face, a scented handkerchief pressed to the lips, designed to mask the less palatable truths beneath the polished exterior. The princess herself, aware of these undercurrents, endured the discomfort with grace, her dignity maintained even as her body betrayed her. The castle's tight quarters and the sheer number of inhabitants only compounded the challenge. Shared chambers, infrequent laundering of bedding, and the presence of pests created an environment where odors mingled and intensified. The princess was not immune. Despite every effort, the odors of the castle became part of her daily reality. The fragrant powders and perfumes offered only temporary respite, a fleeting illusion of cleanliness in a world that prized appearance over hygiene. In the absence of frequent bathing, the princess's attendants developed a repertoire of alternative cleansing methods. Dry baths, involving rubbing the skin with cloths soaked in wine vinegar or rosewater, became common. These rituals were as much about symbolism as practicality, an attempt to emulate cleanliness without the perceived dangers of water. Powdering the skin absorbed sweat and oils, but these substances often contained harmful materials like lead or arsenic, slowly poisoning the princess even as they preserved her appearance. This paradox, a desperate need for cleanliness entwined with a fear of water, shaped the princess's daily life. Her personal hygiene was a delicate balance of avoidance and disguise, a dance choreographed by superstition and social expectation. The princess's body, hidden beneath layers of fabric and fragrance, bore the marks of this uneasy truce with water and cleanliness. The narrative of medieval princesses as paragons of elegance and refinement begins to unravel here, revealing a more complex and unsettling reality. Their bodies, far from the spotless ideals of fairy tales, were landscapes marked by sweat, scent, and the residues of infrequent washing. The air around them, thick with perfumes and powders, was both a shield and a symptom, an attempt to reconcile the demands of nobility with the limitations of medieval hygiene. As you move through the castle's corridors, the contrast sharpens. The princess's chambers, with their velvet cushions and gilded mirrors, conceal a world where the natural human condition is tamed only through artifice. The perfumes that surround her are not mere luxuries but necessities, vital to maintaining the illusion of cleanliness. The powders that coat her skin are both protective and poisonous, a testament to the contradictory forces shaping her existence. In this realm, the avoidance of bathing and the embrace of masking rituals become defining features of royal life. The princess, ensconced in her fragrant cocoon, embodies the complexities of an era where hygiene was not a straightforward matter of health or comfort but a web of beliefs, fears, and social codes. Her story challenges the modern reader to reconsider the assumptions of cleanliness, revealing a world where the pursuit of purity was as much about perception as it was about reality. Behind the veil of perfume and powder lies a truth both intimate and unsettling. The princess's body, like those of her courtiers, carries the evidence of neglect and necessity. The very rituals designed to maintain her image also perpetuate a cycle of concealment and discomfort, a hidden narrative of medieval hygiene that defies the romanticized visions of royal life. In this interplay of scent and secrecy, the princess navigates a world where cleanliness is both a luxury and a liability, shaping her existence in ways that ripple far beyond the castle's stone walls. The morning sun filters through narrow, stained glass windows, casting colorful shards of light upon a chamber where the princess sits before an ornate mirror framed in gilded wood. Her reflection shimmers amid the flickering candlelight, revealing a visage carefully crafted through layers of cosmetics and ritual. Yet, beneath the surface of this porcelain mask lies a reality far removed from the graceful image she presents to the court, a world of discomfort, danger, and the relentless pursuit of an unattainable ideal. The princess's hair, a crown she wears with pride, is both a symbol of status and a hidden burden. Despite the delicate braids and jeweled pins that adorn her coiffure, her scalp is often a breeding ground for lice, those tiny, relentless parasites that thrived in the warm, unwashed environment beneath her tresses. Fine-toothed combs, prized possessions among her attendants, are wielded daily in a fruitless battle against infestation. Instead of eradicating the pests, these combs often spread them further, their teeth snagging on knots and tangles as they pull through the hair, an act both painful and futile. This battle with lice was not a secret whispered only in the shadows, it was an endemic affliction that spared none in the castle, noble or servant. Yet the princess's dignity demanded silence, and so the infestation was masked beneath layers of scent and styling, a silent enemy lurking beneath the shimmering surface. The very act of grooming became a paradox, an attempt to maintain appearances while grappling with the undeniable presence of these unwelcome guests. The princess's skin tells a similarly conflicted tale. To achieve the coveted pale complexion, a hallmark of nobility and beauty, she and her attendants resorted to the daily application of powders and paints that were as toxic as they were effective. Lead-based powders, known for their ability to impart a smooth, unblemished finish, were favored despite the poison they contained. The princess's face, dusted with this deadly dust, became a canvas both radiant and hazardous, the fine white layer concealing imperfections while slowly seeping poison through her pores. Arsenic, another perilous ingredient, was sometimes used in concoctions designed to bleach the skin or remove blemishes. These substances, applied with meticulous care, left the princess's skin fragile and susceptible to irritation, yet the pursuit of flawless beauty outweighed concerns for health. The paradox deepened as the very cosmetics meant to preserve her allure instead contributed to physical deterioration, skin thinning, hair loss, and chronic ailments, conditions that courtiers would attribute to the stresses of royal duty rather than the hidden toxicity of their beauty regimen. The princess's lips, cheeks, and even eyelids were touched with pigments derived from natural but often harmful substances, lending color and vibrancy to her face. Yet these too carried risks. Cinnabar, rich in mercury, was used for rouge, its toxicity a silent threat. Each brushstroke was a gamble, a delicate dance between enhancement and harm. The princess's reflection, while captivating, was thus a mask layered with danger, a testament to the extremes of medieval cosmetic science. Beneath the painted surface, the princess's body bore the consequences of these practices. The lead and arsenic absorbed into her skin affected her nervous system, causing headaches, tremors, and mood swings that those around her would notice but not fully understand. These symptoms, veiled behind smiles and courtly etiquette, added a tragic dimension to the pursuit of beauty, an invisible suffering endured in silence. Hair treatments were no less complex or hazardous. Oils infused with herbs and animal fats were applied to condition the strands, but without regular washing, these mixtures invited mites and further infestations. The princess's elaborate hairstyles, often towering and intricate, were maintained with stiffening agents made from egg whites or resin, substances that hardened the hair but also made it brittle and prone to breakage. The effort to sustain these coiffures required hours of attendance, a laborious process that reinforced the princess's dependence on her ladies-in-waiting and the rigid hierarchy of the court. The rituals surrounding hair and skin care were bound up with symbolism and status. Pale skin signified purity and nobility, an ethereal separation from the laboring masses who bore the sun's tan and the grime of their toil. The princess's lice-infested hair was paradoxically hidden beneath veils or elaborate headdresses, signaling both her rank and the necessity of concealment. The very beauty ideals she embodied were constructed atop a foundation of unsanitary and harmful practices, a fragile edifice maintained through pain and perseverance. As you observe the princess's attendants carefully applying creams and powders, a sense of unease settles in. The atmosphere is thick with the scent of musk, rosewater, and the faint chemical tang of lead and arsenic. The delicate brushes, soft cloths, and fine combs become instruments not only of beauty but of a slow, invisible assault on the princess's health. Her porcelain skin and glossy hair are trophies won at a steep cost, sacrifices made in the name of courtly magnificence. This pursuit of beauty extends beyond the individual to the broader culture of the court, where appearance is currency and the pressure to conform relentless. The princess's daily routine is a performance, a carefully scripted pageant of refinement that masks the realities of her body's decline. The toxic powders and oils are accepted as necessary evils, their dangers overshadowed by the imperative to maintain the illusion of perfection. The psychological toll of this regimen is profound. The princess, aware of the weight of expectation and the fragility of her constructed image, endures discomfort and illness with stoic resolve. Her identity becomes inseparable from the layers of paint and powder, the hairstyles and perfumes that define her place in the social hierarchy. Behind the dazzling facade lies a woman constrained by the very standards that elevate her, trapped in a cycle of cosmetic dependency. In this chamber, the interplay of beauty and decay unfolds with stark clarity. The princess's reflection, so often admired and envied, conceals a narrative of suffering and resilience. Her skin and hair tell stories of a time when the quest for aesthetic perfection was inseparable from the hazards of ignorance and the limitations of medieval science. As the princess rises from her chair, the heavy brocade of her gown sways with practiced grace. Her attendants begin the delicate task of arranging her hair once more, weaving ribbons and jewels through the tangled strands. The visible splendor belies the invisible costs, the lice that flit unseen, the poison slowly coursing beneath the surface, the silent aches born in service of an ideal. In this world of leaden powders and fine-toothed combs, beauty is a battlefield, and the princess a warrior masked in silk and paint. Her story reveals the paradoxes of medieval cosmetics, a pursuit of perfection that exacts a quiet, relentless toll, a mirror reflecting both the shining surface and the shadows beneath. The princess, resplendent yet vulnerable, stands as a testament to the complex dance between appearance and reality in a time when beauty was both a crown and a cross to bear. The castle's chapel bell tolls softly, its reverberations weaving through stone corridors and high vaulted ceilings, reaching even the secluded chambers where the princess resides. Here, beyond the finery and fragrant powders, her life is ruled not only by courtly expectations but by the weighty hand of medieval belief, where notions of cleanliness and morality are entwined in a complex tapestry of superstition and faith. To understand the princess's world fully, one must peer into this shadowed realm where hygiene is far more than a matter of water and soap, it is a question of the soul. In the medieval mind, the body was not merely a physical vessel but a battleground between purity and corruption, a place where spiritual forces played as vital a role as earthly ones. Bathing, paradoxically, was both a symbol of purification and a potential gateway to sin. The act of washing, especially when done publicly or without modesty, was fraught with moral peril. To expose one's flesh was to risk vanity, temptation, or even the influence of dark spirits. For a princess, whose very image was entwined with notions of chastity and divine favor, these fears held immense power. The princess's attendants, steeped in religious doctrine and social convention, enforced strict codes of modesty around any washing or grooming. Bathing was often conducted in private, veiled by layers of curtains and attended only by trusted women. Even then, it was approached with caution, a necessary evil rather than a joyous ritual. The fear that water might open the body's pores to evil humors or demonic influence lingered like a shadow, discouraging frequent cleansing and promoting avoidance. This spiritual apprehension intersected with prevailing medical theories, particularly the concept of humoral balance. The body's health was thought to depend on the equilibrium of the four humors, blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile, each linked to elements and qualities like heat, cold, dryness, and moisture. Water, by its very nature, was cold and wet, believed to disrupt this delicate balance if introduced too often or improperly. The princess's advisors, often clerics versed in both theology and medicine, warned that excessive bathing could lead to weakness, illness, or spiritual vulnerability. Within the castle, these beliefs shaped not only personal hygiene but broader social behaviors. The princess's natural scent, tinged by sweat and oils, was interpreted as a sign of divine favor, a physical manifestation of her noble status and spiritual purity. To smell too clean was to risk suspicion, as if the absence of natural odor suggested an unnaturalness or even deceit. Thus, the acceptance of body odors within aristocratic circles became a marker of authenticity, a paradoxical badge of honor that reinforced social hierarchies. The princess herself internalized these ideas, her self-perception shaped by a culture that equated bodily modesty with virtue. The reluctance to bathe was not merely a matter of convenience but a moral stance, a performance of piety and restraint. The layers of clothing she wore, heavy and elaborate, served to shield her from the gaze of others and to preserve her chastity in a world where exposure invited scandal. Even the perfumes and powders were applied with an awareness of their symbolic weight, enhancing but not replacing the natural state deemed appropriate for a woman of her rank. Throughout the castle, rituals intertwined with these beliefs. Holy water was sprinkled in chambers and on clothing, intended to ward off evil and preserve health. Prayers were offered before washing, invoking protection against spiritual contamination. The princess's bathing chamber was as much a sanctuary as a place of hygiene, imbued with religious significance that elevated the act beyond mere cleanliness. Yet, these deeply held convictions also served to entrench class distinctions. Common folk, whose labor necessitated frequent washing and exposure to the elements, were often viewed with suspicion or disdain by the nobility. Their cleanliness was practical but lacked the spiritual dimension attributed to the aristocracy's natural state. The princess's very odor, shaped by limited bathing and layers of fragrance, became a symbol of her elevated position, an olfactory hierarchy that reinforced social order as surely as titles or land. The castle's servants, caught between these worlds, navigated their own complex relationship with hygiene and belief. They labored to maintain the princess's appearance and environment, mindful of the sacred codes governing cleanliness and modesty. Their hands, roughened by toil and often unwashed themselves, prepared scented waters and powders with reverence, aware that their work was not merely physical but spiritual. In this context, the princess's hygiene practices emerge as rituals laden with meaning, where every gesture carries weight beyond the surface. The avoidance of bathing is both a protective measure and an act of conformity, a resistance against forces seen as both physical and metaphysical. The elaborate costumes, the perfumes, the strategic concealment of the body's natural state, all become part of a larger narrative about identity, power, and faith. The interplay of superstition and social expectation also shaped the princess's understanding of health and wellness. Illness was not simply a biological event but a sign of spiritual imbalance or divine displeasure. To maintain her body's sanctity, the princess adhered to strict regimens that balanced physical care with religious observance. Herbs and potions were administered not only for their medicinal properties but for their symbolic efficacy in restoring harmony between body and soul. This delicate balance is evident in the princess's daily routine. Morning prayers are followed by careful dressing, the application of scented oils and powders performed with solemnity. Washing, when it occurs, is preceded by invocations and conducted with meticulous modesty. Each act is a reaffirmation of her place in the cosmic order, a dance between flesh and spirit that defines her existence within the castle's ancient walls. As the princess moves through her day, surrounded by attendants and courtiers, the invisible threads of belief guide her actions. The odors she bears, the cleanliness she eschews, the garments she dons, all speak to a worldview where hygiene is inseparable from morality and status. In this world, the boundaries between body and soul blur, and the act of washing becomes a ritual fraught with meaning and consequence. The castle itself seems to breathe with these convictions. Its stone walls, adorned with religious iconography, echo with prayers and chants that sanctify the space. The princess's chambers, though adorned with luxury, remain places where superstition and faith hold sway over even the most mundane aspects of life. Here, the pursuit of cleanliness is a spiritual journey as much as a physical one, shaped by centuries of tradition and the weight of expectation. In this realm, the princess is both a symbol and a subject. Her hygiene practices a reflection of a society that views the body through the lens of belief and hierarchy. The rituals she observes, the fears she harbors, and the sacrifices she makes reveal a world where the simplest acts carry profound significance. Through this lens, the princess's story unfolds as a testament to the power of culture and faith in shaping human experience, where the boundaries between purity and impurity, health and danger, are as fragile as the finest silk that drapes her form. The castle breathes a heavy, stifling air as you step once more into the princess's private chambers, a space that, beneath its gilded veneer, reveals the harsh realities of medieval hygiene. The tapestries that adorn the walls, rich with scenes of chivalry and grace, seem to absorb the odors that cling stubbornly to the stone floors and heavy curtains. Here, in the close quarters of the royal household, the invisible consequences of centuries-old customs and superstitions converge in a tangible, unsettling way. The very beds where the princess and her attendants rest are repositories of neglect, their linens infrequently changed and suffused with the residue of sweat, dust, and the detritus of daily life. The mattresses, stuffed with straw, wool, or feathers, offer little protection against the pests that thrive in these conditions, lice, fleas, and mites that make their home in the folds of fabric and the princess's own hair and skin. Despite the attendants' best efforts to brush and air the bedding, the cycle of infestation persists, constant discomfort woven into the fabric of courtly existence. Laundry, a laborious and time-consuming task, is a luxury in this world. The princess's gowns, embroidered with gold and silk, are sparingly washed. The delicate fabrics and intricate designs cannot withstand frequent laundering without damage. Instead, dresses are aired in sunlight or brushed vigorously to remove surface dirt. This practice, while preserving the garment's beauty, does little to address the accumulation of sweat, oils, and odors that cling beneath. The princess's appearance remains impeccable, yet the reality of her environment is one of concealed filth. The cramped and bustling nature of the castle compounds these challenges. Servants, courtiers, and nobility alike share close quarters, their bodies and habits intertwining in a complex web of scent and contagion. The princess, though elevated above these concerns by rank, is not immune. Her attendants, while diligent, cannot fully shield her from the odors and discomforts that permeate the air. The stench of unwashed bodies, mingled with the overpowering perfumes and powders, creates an atmosphere both oppressive and surreal. Within this environment, the princess's own body becomes a battleground. The infrequent bathing and heavy use of powders, combined with the presence of parasites, result in skin irritations, itching, and a persistent sense of unease. Yet, she endures these conditions with a stoicism born of necessity, her dignity maintained through the rituals of dress and decorum that define her role. The physical discomfort is hidden beneath layers of silk and scent, a silent testament to the sacrifices demanded by royal life. The psychological impact of these conditions is profound. The princess lives in a world where cleanliness is both ideal and impossibility, where the desire for purity clashes with the realities of her environment and beliefs. The constant presence of odors and pests shapes social interactions and personal identity alike, fostering a culture of denial and discretion. Courtiers navigate these unspoken truths with subtle gestures, fans fluttered to mask scents, delicate coughs disguised as polite conversation, while the princess herself bears the burden of maintaining appearances amid discomfort. The castle's architecture, designed for defense and grandeur rather than comfort and hygiene, offers little relief. Stone walls absorb moisture and odors, narrow windows limit ventilation, crowded chambers concentrate heat and stench. Even the royal baths, when used, cannot fully cleanse the body of months of accumulated grime and infestation. The princess's relationship with water remains fraught, shaped by superstition and scarcity, rendering true cleanliness an elusive goal. In this crucible of discomfort, the princess's story takes on new dimensions. Her beauty, carefully cultivated through powders and paints, masks a reality of physical hardship and neglect. Her social standing, while granting privileges, also imposes constraints that exacerbate the challenges of hygiene. The rituals that define her daily life, dressing, perfuming, powdering, become acts of resilience, strategies to assert control over a body and environment that resist order. The castle's inhabitants, each bound by their roles and statuses, share in this collective experience. The princess's attendants, who balance care with discretion, embody the tensions of a world where hygiene is simultaneously a necessity and a taboo. Their work, often invisible, sustains the fragile illusion of royal cleanliness, even as the underlying conditions remain unchanged. The delicate dance of concealment and endurance unfolds daily, a testament to human adaptability amid adversity. As you move through these chambers, the contrast between myth and reality sharpens. The romanticized vision of the medieval princess, pure, fragrant, and immaculate, gives way to a more nuanced understanding. Beneath the silk gowns and jeweled tiaras lies a human being navigating a biological nightmare, her dignity upheld through rituals that mask discomfort and decay. The castle, a symbol of power and prestige, reveals itself as a space where hygiene is compromised by tradition, belief, and the limitations of the time. This intimate glimpse into the princess's life challenges the narratives that have long shaped our perceptions of medieval royalty. It invites reflection on the complexities of historical experience, where the pursuit of beauty and status intersects with the constraints of environment and knowledge. The princess emerges not merely as a figure of legend but as a person enduring the harsh realities of her world, embodying the resilience and contradictions of her era. In the lingering shadows of the castle, where fragrance mingles with the faintest hints of decay, the princess's story unfolds in full, an intricate weave of elegance and hardship, appearance and truth. Her existence, shaped by the interplay of social expectation and biological reality, stands as a poignant reminder that history's gilded images often conceal the most human of struggles.